Hello and a very warm welcome to episode 39.5 of The Lazy Couch. This is a weekly podcast giving you everything you need to know about the world of technology, the internet, movies and much, much more. My name is Geoff Kim and I'm with my co-host Kelvin Lee and we're recording on Thursday 19th of November in Sydney, Australia. How you going, Kelvin?
Good. I think our episode number matches the temperature right now.
It kind of does.
It kind of does.
Yes. Y.5 though.
Yes, Y.5 because last week there was no episode.
Well, there was.
There was.
But it kind of got lost to the ether.
Yes.
The podcast ether.
So we ran into some technical issues last week, hence why there was no episode released last week. But fret not, we're back again.
It might actually, appear on a B-side or like a DVD set that we're going to do.
When we hit episode 100, we'll go back to it and release it. It'll be like part of that special.
So episode 39.0 actually exists, but we just weren't comfortable sharing it because it just wasn't in good form.
It wasn't good enough for you, basically. It wasn't good enough.
Right. And we'll probably cover some of what we talked about last week. In this week's episode. A
lot of deja vu happening. Mm-hmm. So this week we have a new format that we want to try out.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at some of the recordings and we thought to ourselves that some of our stories tend to get a bit all over the place. Sometimes we talk about everything and we talk about anything to give you what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we'd slow it down a little bit, pace it a bit better. So we're going to go for two big features. And in between those features, we'll talk about the news. And this time, we'll go through the news fairly quickly because you can get your news from all of the sources that you kind of like, whether it be things like, online websites like The Guardian or the news. But I think where you get the most, fun listening to us is just us talking about the big features, things that we think you need to know about technology and so much more.
So we're going to have two big themes kind of for every episodes going forward. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see
how
that
goes. Love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get lazy, sit back, and we'll take you through what we think you need to know to make sense of all this techno mumbo jumbo.
All right. So first feature, what do we got?
So we've got Google's Nexus program.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a new little toy.
Yes, so I talked about it a little bit last week, which you haven't heard yet. But yes, 2 weeks ago, I did mention that I ordered it.
Yeah.
And it arrived as expected. And I've had it for probably just over 2 weeks now.
Yep.
And there's good and bad here. And, a bit controversial in the office and just amongst my friends because I've been a big Apple fanboy for a number of years and I've suddenly jumped shipped. I've gone Google.
Yeah.
And, I posted that on my personal Facebook and everyone just kind of erupted. It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. And then I remember when I first got the Nexus program, I didn't, you made fun of me. So, so how is it? Let's go through some of the good things.
Right. Yeah. So I'm loving the gorgeous big screen, 5.7 inches. Yeah. That's the screen that is. And it's buttery, marshmallow. It's very responsive. When I had it for the last time when I had a Nexus or a Google Android was probably about 4 years ago. That only lasted maybe 3 months before I threw it out the window. But it is a lot better. They've done a lot better with that. Huawei is the maker of the 6P.
Yeah.
It's 518 pixels per inch. I'm actually really loving the large screen. I don't think I could go back to a smaller screen.
Because initially you had concerns about it being too big and you were thinking of the 5X. Any regrets?
No, not at all. Not at all at the moment. In terms of the size, not so much. I'll talk about the negatives a bit later, going ahead with the positives. I love the feel of it. So the all metal back, it's very grippy. So unlike the curvy iPhones, if it was a Plus that I'm using, like a 6 Plus or 6S Plus, I wouldn't be able to hold it in one hand and type.
Gotcha.
With this, I can almost, I can show you right now. So I've got it in front of me. Yeah. So I'm walking down the street and I could actually hold it like that and then even reach the P like that. So I'm not gripping all the way, but I still feel comfortable with, I don't know how you can describe that position.
So it's sort of the, like you just got your finger. Yeah, the surface is kind of grippy. I didn't realize that. So it's not is it metal at the back? I don't know. It's sort of like a layered texture. It feels rubbery, but it's not. But I see what you mean. This is quite impressive.
Yeah, so I can use it one-handed, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable doing it, so that's a big thing. What else? The front-facing speakers is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Especially for gaming, Hearthstone and the like.
Yeah, so I remember when, I think it was HTC with the M7 first had it and everyone was just blown away. Because, who would have thought putting speakers that face you was going to, actually work it out.
Yeah.
I think, we might talk quickly about the iPad Pro, which has the speakers on each side, but not actually facing the front, still booming outwards. But this is really impressive. Yeah, I've heard the sound as well. I've seen you playing Hearthstone. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and the Touch ID, or I actually probably shouldn't call it Touch ID, but the fingerprint sensor at the back of the phone is in a very handy position as well, especially if you're taking the phone out of your pocket, it's in a natural sort of spot for you to do that. So instead of putting your thumb at the front and the bottom, it's just like it's right there, and it's very quick.
Yeah.
The touch, what is it? The fingerprint sensor is very, very, very quick. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I'll talk about the negatives. So the video player is very, very inconsistent. So Apple has a sort of single video player, so it doesn't matter if you're watching a video through a browser or other apps. It just uses the same sort of video software. On an Android device, this is not the case. No. I found out. It's a very random behavior.
So pros and cons, right? I mean, Android lets you decide, or lets the website or the app decide what video player to use, how to play it, in what ratios. So it can be quite confusing.
Yeah, but the result of that just means that when you sort of go landscape, it doesn't do that sometimes, or going back means going to the start of the video, or sometimes actually goes to another screen altogether or another app. So it's just like totally random.
Yeah.
Just general randomness with the back button as well. It's just very confusing. I'm getting used to it. Some of the sort of lack of bounce back, which is when you sort of scroll through a long list and you get to the end on iOS, it sort of like bounces, but there's no actual feedback on Androids. And I actually don't like the way there is no silence button.
No, I gotta admit that when I switch between the iPhone 6 and the 5 a lot, and I'm always reaching for that. Like I'm in a meeting, and instead of clicking all the way down, it goes click, 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 and just trying to put the volume down.
You can still. I found out later that you can actually just hold it down, and that's probably the quickest way. But there's actually, it gives you 3 choices of sounds as well. It's not just the single sound like you have on Apple. It's like it's the phone ring sound as well as the app sound. Or the soundtrack, and there's also the alarm sound. So you have to sort of like make sure you got all 3 of those silent.
There was an app I downloaded, I remember once on Android, where if I turn the phone screen facing down, it would automatically put it in silent. I need to go find out what that is. Anyway. Yeah,
and probably the worst thing of all for me in the last couple of weeks, I actually went to the Blue Mountains for the weekend, and the coverage isn't the best there. Well, at least on this phone, because I'm on Telstra, and it's known for the best coverage in Australia. I didn't expect any downtime with this, but literally, probably 90% of the time I didn't get any coverage at all. It was like I was in Fiji.
Yeah, so which you're going to. So with Android, you can actually download the latest radio drivers for Telstra. So I think it's just an update away from fixing itself.
Well. Maybe, but I did actually swap SIMs with another person who was using an Android. Another probably like a Samsung. Swapped the SIMs. So my SIM on his phone was perfect, 4G. On mine, 0.
What?
So I think it's definitely the antenna on the phone.
Or could it be a faulty unit?
Okay.
Yeah, I think with the Nexus program, I've been through their customer service and it is pretty good. I think you should definitely have a chat with them.
Okay.
They might be able to send you an update or send you a new phone, because I don't think that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
What about new apps? I mean, do you miss some of the apps from iOS? I mean, one of the reasons why I used to get laughed at a lot and I used to feel so envious of iOS users was, iOS users get all the latest apps. They're always getting the latest stuff first. How have you felt?
Probably not so much of a big deal. The only app that I'm really missing is Fog of World. You know that app that I've been using on the iPhone
for years.
And that hasn't had an update for a couple of years. And I've been using it. So basically, this is an app where you start with a unlocked map, and as you physically go around the world, so you might fly to Rome, and then you walk around Rome, and then it actually uncovers the map, sort of thing. So it's like a fog covering the world, and you unclear the fog, and that's how I sort of track where I've been. And I love it when I sort of go to new places when I do that. I mean, it's not the first time I've been to the Blue Mountains, of course, but I wasn't able to do that on this trip. So because there's no Android version of this app.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you know what? I've found every single thing that I've been looking for. So
I think it'll be a real surprise if there are app developers here still, making apps just for one or starting even with one.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm hearing that most people prefer to start with Android because there is no 2-week wait, or however long Apple makes you wait before they approve your apps.
It's a good testing ground.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
And you want to talk a bit about Ghostery?
So this is something I found while I was researching ad blocking. So, that's the thing that we've talked about in the past on iOS, especially with iOS 9. So I thought that there must be something similar on Android.
Yeah.
I came across Ghostery, which is a service that's been around and I knew about, that you can get as a plugin on your browsers, but it's an actual browser on your Android as well.
Yeah.
So the icon is kind of like a blue ghost.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And it automatically, or by default, blocks all the trackers, including all the analytics and all the ad services. It's brilliant. And the internet usage, or my internet, is like 10 times faster than now on my mobile.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny that we both work in digital, and we were showing this app to different people in the office, and they were freaking out, going, "Why would you do this? I mean, our livelihoods depend on this."
This app is particularly good because you can have full control as well. So, we both work on a website, and so I've whitelisted that website, of course. So I'm giving you full information. And you can actually whitelist per tracker as well. So if you wanted to just say, hey, I've got no problem with Google Analytics, or discuss commenting system, then you can do that.
No, so glad to hear. I think I'm holding your 6P right now, and it definitely feels impressive. And would you say it's almost on par now with the iPhones? I think previously in the past you would say that they were inferior in terms of camera. By the way, we haven't got a chance to talk about the camera yet. I mean, you've definitely taken some shots, some videos. What are your thoughts?
It's probably not as good. It's not as quick. So just they do say the best camera is the one in your pocket or the one in your hand, and sometimes you just want to quickly whip it out and take that shot. It's slightly slower. I did find a way to sort of double tap the power switch, and that's a fast way. On the iPhone, I'm used to sort of like having it on the lock screen and just kind of like swipe up.
Yep.
But generally the performance isn't as fast. It just like sometimes you just have to wait until it's ready to take the shot. But they're getting a lot better. Quality is pretty good. It has 4K video. The only thing it doesn't have is what am I doing? Slow-mo, super slow-mo. Yes,
super slow-mo.
Yes.
Yeah. What about the low light performance? Have you got a chance to look into
I haven't tried it as much. I'm just trying to think. No, there's probably been good light where I've took those photos so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
And and some of you must be wondering why we're talking about the Nexus program, and I think one of the reasons is it's looking through this and preparing for this part of the show. I mean, it was fun to watch how Google actually came from having no operating system to having a phone now that could possibly compete with the iPhones and Samsung Galaxies of the world. I mean, I remember Google actually being on the Apple board, providing guidance around the iOS devices until Eric got his ass kicked out because Steve Jobs found out he was working on something similar. So if you look really early on, the first Android prototype before the iPhone, it was a clicky wheel operating system. And then when they saw the iPhone got announced, they just went, crap, we got to start from scratch again. So what is the Nexus program? For those who don't know, and for those who are shopping around for a phone, the Nexus program is where Google manages the design, the development, the marketing, and the support of all the devices. But a lot of dev and manufacturing are actually carried out by what we call original equipment manufacturers, also known as OEMs. So they've had partnerships with Motorola, Huawei, LG, Samsung, HTC. Yep, I remember HTC building a couple of things. So they're trying to sort of not take over the entire process, because they want to be more collaborative in that sense, because Android is what we call an open source environment where anyone can add to it. And looking back, the first Nexus phone was a Nexus 1.
Yes, remember it well.
Yeah, it was released with Android 2.1, also known as Eclair, my favorite kind of dessert. But it was updated in May 2010 to be the first phone with Froyo as in frozen yogurt, which was the rage of the time. And then it got updated to 2.3 gingerbread. And then after Nexus 1, we had Nexus S. We had Nexus. And then we had...
So that was a Samsung Nexus. Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore the S. Okay.
Therefore the S.
I don't remember that one, but...
and then we had a Nexus. Galaxy Nexus, also built by Samsung, so more like an updated version of the S. And then Nexus 4. I think in Nexus 4 it probably got the program really up and running. I think I saw a lot more people with the Nexus 4 with that glittery back that it had. And it had impressive specs for the time. And the camera got upgraded to an 8 megapixel camera. It had quad core 1.5 gigahertz processor, so 2 gigs of RAM. It was fairly fast, and it had Jelly Bean, which really started to gel Android together. And then we moved on to Nexus 5, which is the one that I picked up. And at the time, if you look at the specs and the 1080p screen and the 2.26 gigahertz quad-core processor, it was a bargain for less than $400.
Yeah, that's when Nexus phones were actually cheap.
Yeah, so that was the other thing about Nexus Phone as well. It was designed as a developer kit for people to try things on. And that's why they were sold for, such cheap prices, because there was no real support program until Nexus 4.
Yeah, and I think they were handing them out, weren't they, at Google I/O?
Yeah, at one point. I think it was the S that was getting handed out.
Okay.
I forgot what it was.
They probably stopped doing that now.
Yeah, it's too expensive. So yeah, even the Nexus 5, pretty cool things like 4G LTE, wireless charging, 802.11 AC Wi-Fi. So it had the latest and greatest at $400, and I bought one. Besides the camera, which wasn't great, everything else was livable.
So this was in 2013 now, aren't we? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
only 2 years ago.
Only 2 years ago. I bought the orange limited edition one, which is...
And would you say that's your second phone at the moment still? Or?
Yeah. I still have it around to play Marshmallow. The 6P, the iPhone 6 can get a bit boring at times. So I switch it around once in a while. And then obviously we have the Nexus 6 made by Motorola, which I wouldn't say was a success. I think a lot of people didn't enjoy it. It was too big, too unwieldy. It had Lollipop on it. But, I never really heard good things about it. It had a better camera, but it wasn't great. I think it was what you have currently now that's really put, Nexus program in line with, the Note 5 at the moment and the iPhone 6S.
So that's, this is when Google actually owned Motorola. Is that correct?
Yep.
So that's surprising. So, I guess the difference between Nexus and Apple is that, they do have OEMs to make the manufacture the actual hardware. I guess Google aren't, strung at that, and they know that.
No. Yeah. And I think at points they made it very clear that they gave Motorola Mobility the full sort of autonomy to build what they thought would be a great phone. So maybe they should have jumped in.
They should have Microsofted it.
Yeah. So what we have now is Geoff's 6P, but there's also a smaller version called the 5X. That one's developed by LG, but this is quite interesting. It's got exactly the same fingerprint sensor and camera. So if you're looking for a smaller phone, you've got smaller hands, or you're just, can't get across this whole 6-inch screen, definitely check it out. It's not as premium, hence what the P stands for. It is made of plastic, and it only goes up to 32 gigabytes, whereas the 6P goes up to 128. But everything else is pretty much the same.
Just with the naming convention, a lot of these numbers can get confusing. I mean, phones have been getting bigger over time, so it kind of makes sense that it's like the next version. But then they're actually talking about the size of the phone mostly, not so much the version. And we'll talk about the tablets as well. And it started with the Nexus 7, which came before the Nexus 4,
10.
I think. As in the
right.
phone,
Yes. That's
so then that naming convention I've always found a bit confusing. But if you're confused as well, it's talking about the size of the phone more so than the version.
That's right.
Number.
A very good point.
Yeah.
And just a quick last note about the 5X. The reason why they call it the Nexus 5X is because the Nexus 5 was probably the fan favorite. And people were kind of, disappointed that when the 6 came out, there was no smaller brother or an update to the 5. So this is very much Google listening to what the fans wanted, what the people wanted, and that's the 5X. So back to tablets. So we have here, right in front of me, the first Nexus 7. It's heavy. It's kind of ugly. It's got a 7 inches of screen. but the bezels are massive. When you look at this thing, like the screen is so small compared to the size of the tablet. So it's heavy. This is your Nexus 7 I'm talking about. I mean,
Yes.
I remember you giving up.
So
like,
I only
fairly quickly.
paid like $300 for that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did use it for a little bit, but I guess I had no use for it overall, just because I got so many other things.
Yeah.
I think I did read it for like ebooks mostly. So that's the one where I, ironically read the Steve Jobs book, and yeah, maybe I should have read Andy Rubin's biography or something.
I know, you should have.
But yeah, that was in 2012 that came out, and I lent it out to a few of my friends as well, when especially Chris, good old Chris, when he was like doing some Android development back in the day.
You're very generous. So that was running Android 4.1. And then we had the second generation of Nexus 7 to bump it up to 4.3. And then the Nexus 10 came out when, big iPads was the thing they were trying to go up against. So that was pretty impressive, the Nexus 10. It was made by Samsung. It had a very nice screen running 2560 by 1600. You could get up to 32 gigs of storage. It came with Android 4.2. It was all really good. And then Nexus 9, which is what we have now, it was just announced in October. A 9-inch device made by HTC, running a new 64-bit NVIDIA chip, and front-facing speakers featuring HTC Boom sound. But we haven't really heard much about the Nexus 9. I've seen it used at Google when I go visit sometimes with the keyboard attachment. So they use it for Tablet Tuesdays, also now known as 2G Tablet Tuesdays. So yeah, I mean, the other part of Nexus program that we don't get to see a lot is the TV unit.
Am I reading this correct? They're on Android 5.0.
Yeah.
So that's Lollipop, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So
it's a latest Nexus that
doesn't run a Marshmallow yet.
I don't know. This one came out in 2014.
Oh, 2014. What's the new one called? Is there a new one? No, there isn't a new one, right? So it's on Nexus 9. Yeah,
Okay.
it was launched with 5. I'm guessing it's got Marshmallow now.
Okay.
So just really quickly, they also had digital media players, also known as the Q, which looks like the Death Star. It was pretty much hated by critics. And then they came up with the Nexus player, also announced alongside the Nexus 9. But still made by ASUS, but didn't get a lot of traction either.
These ones, I think they gave them out for free.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the ones they gave out for free. So yeah, we hope you enjoy learning a bit about the Nexus program. If you're in the market for a phone and you're not a big fan of Apple for some reason, or not a big fan of iOS, definitely think about the Nexus program. And they come at different price points. So the 5X is slightly cheaper than the 6P. And they're very well distributed now. I think we spoke about this when we heard about this, but they're actually, going via Vodafone, Optus, Telstra, all the big boys. So you can definitely find one at your local telco.
And I would say the biggest advantage of getting a Nexus device is like you're going to get the latest Android. Like, you're going to be the first one to get that.
Yeah.
Everything should kind of like work smoothly.
Yeah, so that's the other thing we need to talk about, why the Nexus program is so well loved by so many Android fans. When you get the people like HTC and Motorola and Samsung, they put their own flavor of Android. So they put all these other apps that they think you need. They put all these different fonts and screens and things like that. So Nexus is stripped bare to what Google thinks a mobile operating system should be. It's fast and, in my view, superior. Sony, we look at why Sony is such a good Android manufacturer, because their operating system of Android is pretty much close to stock Android. So yeah, so go for the Nexus program if you're looking for something that is clean, it's fast, fairly affordable if you're going for the 5X, and you get the latest updates from Google. Villager news. So let's get kicked off with the news stories of the week. Tinder goes IPO. So
it's swiped right to the public.
It's swiped. Everyone gets to swipe
right
Tinder
or left.
Right. The Match Group, which owns Tinder, has announced that it will price its shares at $12 a pop, which values the company at $2.9 billion US. As part of the show notes, we're also going to quickly put in a link to an interview that didn't go so well for CEO Sean Rad. Typically, when you're about to go IPO, you don't do interviews. Just don't. You ruin it. So a bit of advice from us to Sean: don't do it.
His name is Sean Rad.
Yep.
Okay.
He's kind of creepy looking as well, but hey, what do you expect for the CEO of Tinder?
Actually, I'm not sure. I would have expected someone a bit more
creepy.
Proper. I don't know. Okay. Next news item. In streaming music news, Rdio is officially kaput. So I mentioned maybe about 2 months ago that I moved to Spotify, and I think that was pretty good timing on my behalf, because Rdio is probably no longer around. I mean, you can still probably use the service, I'm guessing. I wouldn't know because I moved to Spotify, but yeah, it's filing for bankruptcy pretty much. It's only now valued at $75 million. Sorry, that's the $75 million is the price that Pandora is paying to buy some of the assets of Rdio.
Yep.
So the rest of it is like not even worth having. For a company that raised up to $250 million at one stage, this is pretty sad news for them. I was rooting for them, back in the day. I remember going to some of their parties actually.
Oh, you went to Rdio parties?
Yeah. A few years ago, they had a big marketing push in Australia at some stage, but they kind of pushed the boundaries of like really great design, like especially the apps and even the web player as well. But I think they just kind of lost steam and too much competition.
Yeah, but I didn't realize the founders were Skype.
Skype?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the founders of Rdio were Skype billionaires Janus Friis and Niklas Zennström. So Rdio was awkwardly spelled and a little hard to pronounce when you think about it. I can't believe when they first started, there was a $5 web-only streaming plan because they assumed you didn't have a mobile device.
Right.
So yeah, it was bound to happen with Apple Music, Google Music, Pandora.
Yeah. They got pushed out of the market pretty much, but I mean, you know what? I would raise a glass to them because they did push the design, and I still stand by my statement of saying that they changed the whole iOS experience. iOS 7, when Johnny Ive stepped in and changed the whole design aesthetics, going from skeuomorphic leathery patterns to flat design. Rdio, they pretty much copied Rdio at the time, so. There you go. That's their sort of take or little bit of history in design.
Rest in peace, Rdio. On to the next news. We get frustrated by this all the time. We ran out of battery, and then we put in our charger, and it takes forever. Well, Huawei is here to the rescue. Huawei has a new battery that can go from 0 to 48% in 5 minutes. So Huawei owns a company called WattLab, as in W-A-T-T, get it? WattLab. And they demonstrated this at the 56 Battery Symposium in Japan. I don't know how we got through life without knowing there was a battery symposium, and it's 56 years old. How is it that we have had 56 battery symposiums and we're still talking about batteries that don't last a day for handphones? Anyway, so its new fast charging battery is capable of charging 10 times faster than your typical lithium-ion batteries.
So they're saying something like 48% in 5 minutes for a 3,000 milliamp per hour, and 600 milliamp per hour battery that hits 68% in 2 minutes.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think I did read that just battery technology in general. What happens is that there's two sort of speeds. So once you get to sort of 95%, then it really, really slows down.
Yeah. Just to make sure you don't burn the battery out, I think.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense. You know how sometimes when you go to airports or bars or something, you see those chargers sticking out the wall? I always wondered, how long do you have to wait there for your phone to charge at the airport before you get anything back? So this actually makes sense now. So hopefully we can see it take off. And then the last piece of news of the week, Google will now stream apps to your phone. So this is how it works. Google search results. They will no longer include just websites. They will include content in apps. But what if it finds an app that you don't have? This is what it does. It simulates the app on their end and it just streams it to you. So for example, if I find a restaurant and it's on Foursquare, but I don't have Foursquare installed, it will somehow load the app up, not on my phone, on their end, and sort of show me. Like,
so, okay, when I read this story, Kelvin, I thought that the app developer had to provide code to Google for this to work. But you're saying that
no,
Google
not
is
anymore.
somehow scraping
Yes.
the code?
Yep. So they've announced that you
Okay.
no longer have to put code on your apps for us to index you. Google will index the app on their end and then stream it to you. So you no longer open websites, you open versions of the app.
So is it almost like Pocketbook in that Google has some sort of agent, like a virtual agent that logs in to the app?
Or the way I see it is, and this is just me making fun of it, there's a huge phone in Google. It loads every app known to man, and the engine actually just scrapes all of it, puts in an index.
It's like a spider,
Yeah, but
like an app spider.
out of a giant phone in Google somewhere.
Alright.
So this is, and obviously not everyone's going to see this. It's a new feature. So yeah, and the example that we see here on The Verge is, for example, if you're searching for a hotel and you get a search result from an app called Hotel Tonight.
Which is a great app, by the way.
Really? Never heard of it. Google will stream the Hotel Tonight app, allowing you to tap through it and make a booking like you have it. Although it will be a bit slower than actually installing it. So this is pretty impressive tech. And you know, one of the things we were just talking about before the show was soon you won't have to install any apps because your phone will just be a dumb device that will be served out of, you know, Google or Apple, just so you can have access to every single app in the library without you actually running out of memory.
So I think, well, actually, I'm quite positive that this will end up being one of our features in a next episode down the track. But you know, this whole idea of web versus the app experience is been a big one. You know, we had Nilay Patel from The Verge a few weeks ago saying the web is dead or effed, I think is the wording that he used. But like this could sort of change the game back towards the web.
Yeah, and Google knows it. And Google is, for it to put so much resource and technology and people into actually doing this. Yeah, websites are.
So I think this is dangerous at the same time because I think this is going to push the Facebooks of the world to build their own browser.
Yeah, creepy.
So
creepy
I think that's going to happen, but that's probably a topic for another time.
Yeah, and also I think for me, because you know I work with search and stuff. How are they going to deduplicate services that have the same content on both the app and the web? Which do you serve first? Which gets ranked higher? So if you're on Domain, which is a property search app, do I show you what I find from the desktop version, or do I show you the stuff that I have in the mobile version? So Google has a lot to work through. The ranking algorithm is going to work over time. Anyway, on to our second feature.
Hey, how are you? Good, how are you?
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. Just like that.
Apple Pay is now accepted everywhere in the neighborhood with Square.
And on to the second feature, Calvin. We're going to talk about payments.
Yeah, something we all love to do.
So we talked about this Nexus 6P. P is for premium, but maybe it's also for payments.
Yeah, you never know.
Because you know what I've been doing? I've been using the tap and pay feature.
You've been freaking out cashiers everywhere across
Freaking
Sydney.
out, but also, you know, like
educating,
like amazing them, getting them amazed.
Yeah.
Yes,
you're impressing them.
That's right, and it's been very good. So any sort of merchant device that has a PayPass kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's the other version? PayPass.
Paywave.
I can actually use my 6P.
Yeah.
And just kind of like just tap and it's done.
Okay, so let's talk through a bit. So do you what you do? First, you pull out your pocket, you unlock it.
So so I use the CommBank app, and it does have a tap and pay feature. So it's a widget that you can do. So it's like a shortcut to the tap and pay feature of the app.
Yep.
And I just put in my passcode.
Yep.
4-digit code.
Yep.
And it'll just come up with the.
So Apple's payment system has a 7-second sort of. So they have a vision that you must be able to process a payment within 7 seconds from taking the phone out of your pocket to actually tapping.
So I would say if the fingerprint ID was enabled, because at the moment it's not enabled for tap and pay feature in CommBank, it will happen, I suppose. But it would take less than 7 seconds for sure.
Cool. So tell me what some of the cashiers have said when you pull out your giant.
So
6P.
one funny one from the Blue Mountains, I think it was in Katoomba, one of the
Yeah.
pie shops that we went to,
Yeah.
and she was saying, "Oh, like yeah, that's really cool. All the Americans that come through, they always pay with their phones." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, now Aussies can do it as well."
Yeah, and that's the irony of it all. We actually take up wireless payments. Our uptake of it is a lot higher than the Americans, who are obsessed with their magnetic stripes. So I find that really funny.
Yeah. So the intro was Square, and so there was a bit of news about them this week, Kelvin.
Yes. So Square is a company that specializes in enabling credit card payments for everyone, and they're going IPO as well. So they're selling their shares at $9 each. So they're valued at close to $3 billion. I remember when I first went to San Francisco for my honeymoon about 2 years ago, and I was at a pop-up store. Just buying a hot dog and stuff. And this guy just went, "Yeah, you want to pay your card?" I'm like, "Sure." And then he pulls out his iPhone. There's a little square sitting on top of the phone. And I swiped it and I was out.
Yeah.
Done in less than half a minute.
Yeah, and we watched the full version of the video earlier, and I loved how, Jack Dorsey was asked, why the name Square?
Yeah.
And remains to be seen whether this is true or not,
Yeah.
but he said, "Oh yeah, well, they found the word square in a dictionary or, some sort of book, and they felt like, there was all these phrases around it, and they decided to build the hardware around the word, so like a little square device."
Yeah, so if they had stuck with triangle, it would have looked entirely different. I don't know. I think that when they developed it, it looked square and they named it Square. I think, he also mentioned that, Square is fair and square. So
That's right.
Yeah, it's a bit of a marketing
It's also
play.
hip to be square.
It's also hip to be square. So Jack Dorsey, a bit about him. He's also the CEO of Twitter.
Yes, busy guy.
Yeah, busy guy. He's back. So now he's managing 2 companies. Seems like a fun guy. So if you look at something like Square, who have now gone wireless, they have a new device in the shape of a square. I would say it's the size of a hockey puck. In the size square. So now they accept Android Pay, Apple Pay, and Samsung Pay, and that's where the difficulty is for a lot of these merchant services, whether it be banks or credit unions, is getting this compatible with all the different phones out there, with all the different credit card companies like Amex and Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah.
So the challenges were there, but Square has really stood out. When I go to Officeworks, which is a very large sort of office stationery store here, you can buy PayPal. You can buy their wireless scanner, set up an account for $99. So that's really accessible as well.
What about Bitcoins?
Yeah, Bitcoins.
No?
No, I think Bitcoins, there's still a trust factor until the banks get it right. I think, we won't be accepting Bitcoins readily everywhere.
But yeah, in places around the city, you can pay with Bitcoins. I just think it's a very complex environment at the moment, because you've got all the NFC payment companies like Android, Apple, and Samsung Pay.
Yeah.
You've got Square, which is sort of the in between, the user interface between the customer and the banks, I suppose, or the merchant and the banks. It's kind of like a triangle. It is a triangle.
Yes. The triangle of payments.
And you've got PayPal, you've got Bitcoins, sort of the payment mechanisms. And then of course you got the big banks.
Yeah.
So how this all fits in together, like everyone's kind of like elbowing each other to get some room, and this is going to be very interesting times.
Yeah, and I think it'll come together, just like, whether it be music streaming services or or phones. If you look at phones, BlackBerry is slowly dying a slow death. So I think, it's just a battle to the top, last man standing type scenario. And talking about Apple Pay. So we now have it in Australia. It's here. It's finally here. Well, bits of it.
It's not even 2016.
Not even 2016. So
Yes.
Merry Christmas from American Express and Apple Pay. Apple Pay was launched in Australia on Thursday for iPhones, Apple Watches, and iPads, but only for American Express card users, and not just any American Express card users. The card has to be issued by American Express. So no bank issued cards that offer this can be used at this stage. The launch in Australia follows a rollout in Canada on Wednesday, followed by Spain, Hong Kong, and Singapore will all follow suit shortly in 2016. any retailer that accepts Amex contactless payments will accept payments on the iPhones loaded with the Amex credit card credentials. This includes large retailers here in Australia like David Jones, Myers, McDonald's, Kmart, Harvey Norman, Telstra, Coles, Woolies, and much more. So back to Amex, why it's only Amex issued cards. The problem is that a lot of banks actually have what they call companion cards. So it's the MasterCard / Visa as well as an American Express. I'm guessing that causes some sort of conflict within the system in terms of which really belongs to the user.
Yeah, who gets the cut?
Yeah, who gets the cut? I mean, that's where the money is, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm just reading here that Apple appointed someone from ANZ Bank, former cards executive, to negotiate with the other banks for Apple Pay's behalf. So that's quite a, I don't know, that's quite a risky or pretty game move.
Yeah. So so Geoff and I both work for a bank. So full disclosure there. So we're on the end of the food chain, so we probably won't know what sort of discussions are happening between the banks. But I can imagine, whether it be banks or whether it be the big four accounting firms or any of these guys, getting all of them in the same room to negotiate and discuss payments and sharing of information and data. And
you do hear about the way Apple negotiates.
Yeah, so there are a lot of
quite
rumors.
brittle.
So I won't name anyone, but we've heard an American bank talk about their very tough negotiations with Apple, because we are at the mercy of Apple. When you think about it, they hold the trump card in the sense that almost everyone's using their devices, their services, and I'm guessing they will probably want to keep the data as well. Whereas we're so used to, as the banks are so used to actually storing all this information, we're going to have to give up a lot.
Do you think Aussies will, fall over themselves to, the general consumers to use their phones to pay? Do you think this is going to happen?
I don't see. I think cards are just so medieval. I mean, you think about it. I have all these cards in my wallet, and like all these loyalty cards. Soon they will all go. I think it'll all be in your phone. So I'm just, I think it'll catch on fairly quickly. The moment we can do tap and pay on an ATM, we're done. Which ANZ is already doing, I believe. Okay. So soon the cards were just a means of a way to access your money.
It's your ID. Authentication platform.
And now that you have your fingerprint on your phone, that easily gets replaced by your phone.
Yeah. I think there will be some, reservations from the people that don't trust, because it's somehow by magic. At least, with a card you used to swipe. There's that physical connection. Now it's all over the air. It's like you're not really tapping, you're just hovering over this thing, and somehow magically some money gets transferred. Yeah. So that there might be some pushback there, but you know what? Aussies are quite fast in terms of adoption.
Yeah, it'll be quite funny. You know how people freeze their credit cards to stop spending? Soon people will have to freeze their phones.
Actually, that's another thing that one of the other merchants told me about, that they love the freeze feature.
So that's the other thing as well, is because now it's all digital. You can use apps, whether it be by the bank or Apple Pay or by the credit card, to actually control how much you can spend. Whereas with the card, unless I took it from you, you'd be running around still buying everything you need for Christmas.
So listeners out there, stick with us, because we will be covering this. There's a very moving industry and fast moving. So there's going to be some confusion there initially. Yeah. So we'll be covering this quite heavily.
Yeah, so stick with us. So that was the end of the second feature. We hope you enjoyed the new format. We definitely enjoyed it. It allowed us to pace ourselves a lot better. We got a bit of a break in between as well. So tell us what you think. Write to us on Twitter at The Lazy Couch, or email us, thelazycouchpodcast@gmail.com. Find us for Facebook. You know how. Just search for us. Same on Instagram and YouTube. And while you're on YouTube, don't forget to like our videos or subscribe to us. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or your Apple device, don't forget to rate us and tell your friends about us.
Actually, we'd love to for you to let us know what you'd like us to feature next over the coming weeks.
So that's the other fun part about having features, is maybe we can put a list out a week before and see what people think.
Yeah.
Anyway, Calv out.
Geoff out.